Started. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with the agenda. Today we are going to skip the strategic plan review because if anyone else is like me, not a lot has moved there because we're all busy worrying about other things. So next up on the agenda is the previous meeting minutes, and I did not track one of those down. Tammy, do you have a copy of the minutes that you can share your screen?
No.
And Tammy's working on pulling that up, it looks like. Tammy, we can't hear you, dear. You're on mute.
I apologize, guys. My remote storage unit is not with me because I'm at my dad's. I apologize. It's out in the car, and that would take me 15 minutes, and I'd miss everything else. So,
no worries. We will have 2 sets of minutes to review and approve at the next meeting.
okay.
Okay, moving along in the agenda. Next up is the treasurer's report. Gerard, the floor is yours, sir.
So the treasurer's report was emailed out. We're in a very good financial position for everything that's going on. It's actually very surprising, our net income. If you take out the festival, our net income for this year is higher than our net income was for last year at this point in time. The net of the convention is $180.84 loss. That is due to the PayPal fees. I separated out the awards and excellent fee for $500 as a separate line item. Normally that would be reimbursed or covered by the gala. And other than that, I don't have a whole lot of anything to say. I have gotten a couple inquiries on the Boughton grants that unless the board is going to make some kind of recommendation, the Boughton clearly states that the funds have to be spent in the designated year, which is 2020, by December 31st. Unless the board is going to make some kind of recommendation to override that, and that doesn't have to be decided at this meeting. It's just something, if we don't have any of our awardees coming to us for funds before then, we might want to reach out or have that as an agenda item for the next meeting. Questions, comments, concerns over any of the financial information?
Can you refresh my memory, Gerard? How much did we make, so to speak, from convention entry fees, registration fees that people donated back?
So that was just under $1,000. The Iowa Theater Fund has $1,219, and $250 of that was moved from the stipend we had given from the Children's Theater.
Right. And
we had 2 more checks that no one bothered to collect or cash. So I went ahead and moved those over to the Iowa Community Theater Fund as well, assuming that after 6 months, they're never going to cash them. If they do, I'll just move the money back.
Okay. Thank you. I forgot where to find that. I forgot we named it.
Not a problem. Yep, and notice it is negative because the funds, I did not set up a separate savings or checking account for it. So the funds are actually sitting in our Iowa checking account.
Okay, are there any additional questions or comments for Gerard and the financial position? Fantastic, thank you, Gerard. Seeing none, we'll move on to the president's report. I will keep my report brief this month. I'm
sorry. Are we looking at a scenario where we need to discuss the Boughton in this particular moment or time because it is the financial, or should we reserve that for new business? What's the thinking on that?
We can bring that up in new business.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions regarding the financials? All right, we'll move on to President's Report. I'll keep it brief. I've seen a few theaters starting to shutter to life, whether those shows are outside or inside or otherwise. It's a trying time for theater in Iowa. So we will continue to do our best to support those individuals as we see the need. Okay. That will cover my report. Are there any questions for me? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on then to the awards committee report. John's not with us today. I did receive the email from John that he sent along as his report. Any of the items that look to be actionable in this have been pulled forward into the agenda under new business. So we will be handling those as we arrive there. Are there any questions regarding the awards committee at this time?
Yes, my question is, what were the major points for and against? It would have been nice to have seen a summary of pros and cons to help the board understand what the committee was tied up in.
Oh, for and against holding how we
The
handle
gala.
it in 2020.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's a point of a discussion under new business. So if there's anybody from the committee that has that information now, we can share it now, or we can hold it until we get to new business.
Go to new business.
Okay, we'll get there, Gerard. Don't worry, we won't lose that question. Okay, moving on. The events committee has no report. However, there are items under new business regarding the annual event. Any questions for Cheryl or her committee? Seeing none, thank you, Cheryl, and your committee for your work. Moving on to institutional review. No report was submitted. Norman, do you have anything to add? Okay, any questions for Norman? Seeing none, we'll move along. Thank you, Norman. Marketing, David, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, when Jason and I talked about the marketing committee, the first thing we had put it at was, we talked about it in January or February, we put it at a scenario of, hey, let's wait for the annual festival in March. We'll make sure we do some recruiting at that point, get some theaters that were not just board members involved, and really kick off the marketing committee. Obviously, we all know life changed. So we kind of had a bit of a hold for the marketing committee, because until I had some volunteers or committee members ready to go, I was not pushing it. But as Jason and I kind of conferred, as I submitted to Jason, I said, well, maybe we should get a little guidance from the board as to what we think the marketing committee could or should be doing. And if there was anybody else on the board that wanted to be part of the marketing committee, I was just looking for a little bit of clarification as to goals and tasks as established by the board, not just my own imagination kicking off and saying, hey, let me go take care of these things. So that was what I asked Jason to let me bring to the agenda, was getting some instruction and guidance from the rest of the gang. That's my report.
Thanks, David. Does anyone have any feedback for David, or is interested in serving on the marketing committee?
Well, I've got my opinion. Again, I think ICTA is a gem that's kind of hidden under a rock. I would love us to spend some money on putting our name out there, getting people to know us, and getting some membership, the individual memberships or family memberships, so that that we start growing that way. And as people are more aware of us, then we would also gather more of the theaters. Again, just my thought.
I see Norm, I see Mrs. Frank.
Okay. I was just going to say, I think that we need to wait because honestly, a lot of the theaters are not paying attention right now. And I would say that probably 80% of them are shut down. So it's hard to get an audience to market to. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. The same thing.
But isn't this a great time to communicate with them to find out, you know, what it costs to be in their playbill, to find out how they're doing? To me, it's a conversation starter.
My
So that
point
we
is
can-
that we're only answering our email once a month. We're not even looking at it in many places.
Okay.
I think we're staying on top of, I mean, other than the theater being dark, we're still doing everything we normally do behind the scenes. So I guess I tend to agree with Gerard. I think it might be a good time to find out what is helpful to theaters. Although in regard to programs and that kind of thing, I think we're going to be considering changing how we do things completely, because we do a system called standing ovations that the whole central Iowa area does, and they're not flexible enough to accommodate this COVID stuff and not paying the entire 12-month price, which just doesn't work for us. So just my 2 cents worth.
I will throw this out there, Cheryl. There have been some misunderstandings on the standing ovation as it was reported to us by the person who did that. And so there's going to be some clarifying done at the meeting next week on that. So yeah, there were some misunderstandings there. I'm not saying that Ankeny's going to change their mind. I'm just saying the flexibility, there is some flexibility built into that contract. So we just need to take a look at that. But what I wanted to contribute is that there are some theaters out there that are trying to do either alternative or traditional with social distancing measures theater out there. And I feel like the ICTA Facebook page could be used to help promote that. It could also serve the purpose of giving hope to those people who are in areas where the theaters are choosing not to do anything. So for instance, I'd love to see just because I'm familiar with Ankeny and now I'm familiar with Ames, I'd love to see some of the Ankeny posts regarding our Readers Virtual Theater reposted to the ICTA page with maybe a comment that says, don't lose hope. There are alternatives to get your theater fixed. Here's an idea. I don't know obviously we have Cheryl in our committee. So the person who knows the most about our RVT program, maybe we could do a post, maybe Cheryl could do a post that says, hey, this is something that we're doing in our theater. And if you want to talk about how you could do it at your theater, contact me. And we could reach out to some of the other theaters that are doing maybe the outdoor theater or some of the other alternatives and ask them, hey, would you please submit for us a post describing what your theater's doing to get through? And the purpose, I think, of it is to keep our theaters, our member theaters, in the forefront. They're working really hard to stay relevant using their social media, and to have the endorsement of the ICTA's Facebook page as well would just help them with that goal. And that is ultimately part of our mission, is to help our member theaters further their goals.
I think you're spot on there too. That's what they're doing in some of the shows for Omaha. They're walking outside and doing the shows. They're social distancing. The singers are coming in to sing, maybe not act, but sing the songs that they're supposed to sing in their opera. So I'm glad that people are still looking for venues. The average people are looking for venues of places to go and to see and to do. So.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my whole screen went black, so that's what I wondered. I agree that we need to, market more things, but I agree that this time is really not to the time to do it unless we send out to all the theaters saying that, you know, we would like to get their input or something like that. Because there's these little theaters around that, you know, probably are not even thinking about doing anything and probably are not even at their theaters.
Right.
I follow Jason. I'm trying to follow Jason's recommendations here.
Sorry, I dropped the meeting for a second. What was the question about recommendations?
I would like to add that I don't think any of us were saying not to send messages to all member theaters. I think Tammy's point was there, we could solicit information on anything any theater is doing and ask them to share on our Facebook page.
Yes.
Tammy was just giving examples.
Right. Well, and the problem I have with this is someone has to take leadership of our Facebook page. And right now, Jason's trying to stay on top of that. I don't know if anyone else is maintaining that, but we would need to find someone. I monitor the Facebook page for Ankeny, and it's a full-time job. So I would like to see the marketing committee, if we decide to move on this, find someone who could serve the ICT committee answering to that committee. So find someone in our circle of influence, someone who's formerly served on the board or someone who's indicated that they'd like to be of service but not necessarily be on the board, and ask that person to be our Facebook guru. So as the Facebook guru for Ankeny, the person has to have good judgment skills in that if something comes along that has some controversy, it needs to be referred up rather than just handled. So for instance, I recently had an inquiry about our political stance and whether or not we were going to put something on our Facebook page in support or against whatever a political stance. And that's not something that the Facebook guru should be handling. That's something the board needs to discuss. So whoever we have do it has to be someone who accepts that responsibility to the board and makes sure that they bring those things rather than just reacts to them.
And to add to that point, Tammy, after the May meeting, I believe it was, I believe I added both you and David as editors to our Facebook page. But it looks like for whatever reason, you're no longer there. So we'll re-add you. But we get vanishingly few inquiries via our Facebook page. So that will be a tool that we'll want to start working towards using more often.
So
Okay.
can I make well, no, I can make a motion. I'd like to make a motion. One, that the marketing committee begin looking for someone, a website Facebook guru that can help with that proposition. And also to design a letter, email, whatever communication, reaching out to theaters, and that can be sent out with the Boughton grant applications so that we're not increasing our mailing costs, but using it as an additional tool so that we can reach out and hopefully help. So 2 points. One is starting to find a person, a warm body for a guru. And the second is to have a letter that can be sent out with the Boughton grant applications.
So there's a motion on the floor to find a Facebook guru as well as draft a letter to be included with the Boughton applications to facilitate conversations between our member theaters and getting their information on our Facebook page. Is there a second?
I second.
Give it to Helen. I saw her first. Any further discussion on this item?
Is this a tasking that actually needs a vote by the board, a motion and action to take? Isn't it just the board is summarizing their guidance? I mean, I'm just curious.
It's a request to the marketing committee, I think.
I mean, this is two perfect assignments, and these are great tasks, and I'm more than willing to embrace them and move forward with them. I just didn't know if it needed to be a full forward motion. That was what I was just curious about.
And I don't know that it needs to be a full forward motion, but I want it to be in the record so that we've got history on it and giving some direction.
Let's just vote.
Well, that's what I asked for, was
Do you want
direction.
me to read what I wrote? I wrote, Gerard moved that the marketing committee begin looking for a Facebook guru to help administer and form a letter to be sent out to our member theaters to be included with the Boughton grant information to reduce postage. Is that fair?
Can I get a deadline? What's the Boughton letter go out?
I try and have it out before Labor Day.
Oh.
So if I could have a letter by the end of August, that would be perfect.
Okay.
David, I can help with the verbiage on that letter. I volunteered to serve on the marketing committee, so I can put a letter together and forward it to you for you to edit and then send off to Gerard with your changes if you'd like.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
I'll take a volunteer.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this item?
I have a question.
Sure.
I thought we had a Facebook page that's been in existence for years.
We do. We have the Facebook page that we control, and then there's also the Facebook page that existed that we have been unable to retain control of because of non-response of the page owner, whomever that is, and we've been unable to identify them.
Let me look through my years of notes and see if I can find who it is.
Okay, and if you could send that on to David and I, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further discussion on this this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of referring the selection of a Facebook guru and the development of a letter to be included with the Boughton grant information signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
The motion passes with one abstention. Thank you all. Okay.
Who abstained? I'm sorry.
David.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any further discussion, information, or ideas to share with David? If you have anything that comes up after the meeting, feel free to send David and the marketing committee an email. And in the interim, we will look forward to finding a Facebook guru and getting that letter to the Boughton information. Thank you, David, and thank you to the new committee members who volunteered. Next up is membership. There was no report, but a discussion item came forward to talk about membership and fees for 2021. Mel, do you have anything?
No, I do not. I mean, on the fees for 2021, I think we should still, they should still be paying for those if they still want to remain a member. And keep the fees at the same. Because I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen in 2021? It could just all clear up and they can all start having their shows.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate with, this is very unlike me. I'm going to say we waive all the 2021 fees because literally we haven't been able to do a ton of work for our membership in 2020. One of our greatest tasks is to bring everyone together, sharing ideas, and literally we have been prevented from bringing people together. So
that's true.
Playing devil's advocate, and also speaking financially, we're in great shape compared to some of our theaters.
I think that's a great idea.
So to clarify, Gerard, would your proposal mean that anybody who was a member this year and did not receive the typical membership benefits would have waived fees, or anybody who wants to join in 2021 gets a waived fee?
What I would say is that everybody that's a member that paid for 2020 automatically gets rolled forward that their dues are good through 2021.
Good.
And we also, to bring this out, new theaters, anybody that's new gets their first year free. So if we can capture some additional new theaters, they're free for 2021 and wouldn't have anything coming due until 2022.
This goes to the marketing committee as well, but one thing that we could say is, 2021 is a rebirth, so we're all new, and so we all get the new theater discount.
Yeah.
Good marketing.
And
Again,
Gerard,
go ahead.
Gerard, does what you're proposing apply to only theaters or individual members and theaters?
I would say theaters. Individually, I hadn't thought about individuals. To be very straightforward, I thought about our theaters.
Go ahead, Tammy.
As you mentioned that, Gerard, I was thinking that we could encourage those people who want to be members in this upcoming year to make a donation of any amount in order to be a member, so that this idea that I was thinking of before you said all new theaters get in free anyway and reminded me of that, we could extend that offer to individuals. So we could extend the offer that if you want to become an individual member of the ICTA, a donation of any amount is all you need to become a member. And that way it gives us their contact information, and it kind of puts their money where their mouth is. I mean, you get what you pay for. So if we just give this away free, it's not really of any value. But if we say any donation at all, then that allows people who might not come in at the $50 or $25 or $75 rate to say, well, pshoosh, I'll just send a $5 bill. That's one coffee.
Yep. And you never can tell. You might also get people that say, I've had a great year. I can afford to give you $100 this year. I'm going to do it. Sorry, did you go back on mute? Because I saw your lips move and I didn't hear anything.
I think I just said sure. And then I was typing and my lips were moving as I was typing.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this item? And I would be happy to entertain a motion pursuant to the discussion that we've had thus far.
I'll make a motion that all theaters that were registered in 2020 are automatically registered for 2021. And all individuals are invited on a pay what you can basis to renew their membership for 2021.
And we have a second from Norman. Thank you, Norman. Is there any further discussion on this item?
Excellent thoughts, guys.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is that all member theaters for 2020 have their membership fees rolled into 2021, and all individual members are invited to re-up at a pay what you can level. So is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries.
Okay, I was on mute. I apologize. Who made the motion?
David.
The motion was David and the second was Norman.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, folks. The nominations committee has no report. We retain the same slate as we had at the last meeting, which includes 4 of the 5 individuals eligible to re-up from the current board, as well as 2 new individuals who have expressed interest in being on the board. Yes, Cheryl, you have a question.
This, just a thought occurred to me this morning. We live in a world where some president does a lot of executive orders. And I don't know if that's something that's applicable to our organization, but my thought this morning was, as I was contemplating John's information that the committee can't come to a consensus about, should we offer any awards at all in 2020? Should we skip the year, et cetera? My thought was, could we we're skipping the 2020 board membership or the board term year, so that, I mean, it is August already. Our new members haven't been voted in. who should have started in March. Could we just skip the year and bring that whole slate to the March event, and have those new folks join and begin their term then? Anyone who was up for re-election obviously, gets this kind of bonus year in between, but again, it's been kind of a lost year. So just a thought and something I'd like to consider, and maybe this isn't the appropriate time in the meeting to consider.
I think you're at the appropriate time, and the short answer to your question is yes. The much longer answer is there are a lot of legal hurdles that we would have to get through, because we are required by the state of Iowa to hold an annual meeting every year. And in our bylaws, we're required to, we have set items, including the elections of new board members during that annual meeting. Off the top of my head, the easiest way to do this would be suspending some or all of the bylaws, which would be a vote of the membership, not of the board. And that sets a very soft precedent for other things in the future that we may not want to be setting precedent for. So it would need additional review and consideration, most likely by an institutional review committee, should we choose to go that way.
I wasn't proposing that we skip the annual meeting. I was only proposing that we skip the portion of election of officers due to the fact that over half the board year is already elapsed without that taking place. So, yeah.
Right. No, I think you raise a good point. And the only reason I brought up the annual meeting is because we have prescribed elements that have to occur at that point. And then the place that we would take care of something like that would be an annual meeting.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments or questions on that particular issue or nominations in general? I will ask the question that, is this an idea that the board would like to investigate or pursue?
I think it'd be a good idea.
I know I was part of a theater where we changed our fiscal year, and we just extended every board member the amount of the time so that we got to the new correct fiscal year. And that only required just the board taking its own action. Is that not similar to what we would be talking about now?
I believe we've got significantly more hurdles because of the Iowa laws requiring us to respond to our membership, and then also our bylaws. And as it's been brought out, doing this once sets a precedent that allows future, whatever we do here, allows future boards to also do this. So we need to be very, very cautious and document what it is, why it is, and how we came to the conclusion, so that future boards would be able to use that only in cases of a pandemic or a complete economic collapse, or some other methodology to determine when it's appropriate, versus we don't want to change board members, and so we're suspending the board elections this year.
Norman?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we are also under the thing with our theater for having an annual meeting. And what we did was we simply said to the membership, in light of the fact that the governor has declared a state of emergency for the state of Iowa, we're going to conduct our annual meeting virtually, and we did a Zoom meeting and invited anyone who wished to attend. We did it, we elected the board, we went on.
Right, and that would be the likely intent of our annual meeting, which is in the new business that we're going to discuss.
I also agree with Norman. I think that would be a good way to handle it, and we would be staying on track, but in a less difficult way, just a simple Zoom meeting with advance notice.
Which would be compliant with Iowa law.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, well, we'll hold that in our hats as we move into new business here in a minute. Is there anything else for nominations? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into the organizational business. First is old business. Is there any old business? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into new business. We have a slated amount of new business. I have one item to add, and that is reimbursement for me for both our Zoom account as well as our annual renewal of our URL for our website. So we'll tack that on at the end. It should be fairly straightforward. But
can we also bring in the, should we also bring in the Bhutan question to be added to the end of this as well?
yes, we'll add Boughton to new business. Is there any other new business we need to add to the slate? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed into new business. The first item of new business we have is the handling of the 2020 awards. Items to consider here are the recognition of shows that have already been reviewed in 2020, a question about shows returning to production that have already been requested, and our policy on reviewing those shows, as well as any potential incoming requests. To run through this briefly, the executive committee authorized a joint virtual annual meeting and awards ceremony in June, and the planning of that was unable to be completed in a fashion that allowed it to happen in a timely manner. So we're bringing that forward to the board for further consideration. I've received questions as well as the awards committee has had discussions about how we recognize those shows that have already been reviewed this year. I've received a couple of questions about what do we do if we've signed up for something and don't feel comfortable reviewing a show in the current environment, as well as adding to the docket here what incoming requests might be like. First, I'd ask any members of the awards committee that are on the call to share the nuances of the discussion that you've had. And unfortunately, John was unable to join us today, but I'd like to hear what the positional statements are from the committee.
Well, I know that when John sent out that information, I said that I think we should do the award, recognize the people that have already had shows reviewed, but let them know that they are going to be added to the 2021 season. And then just combine those together. And then when we have, the award ceremony or whatever, that we can do it at that time. But still, there's not enough of them. I think there's probably maybe less than 15 that had even been reviewed. I can go look real quick if you want me to see how many had been reviewed, but I would say a little more than maybe 10 and no more than 15. So that was my recommendation. And also too, I recommended that if there is a show that, sent in for review, I can't see that, that we can't find someone, even if it's one person, to go review it. I have no problem going and reviewing a show anyplace else. So that was my thought.
My contribution to the conversation was that whatever we decide to do, it needs to be fair to those theaters that are stepping out and putting in the extra effort to do a show, whether that means extra social distancing or non-traditional ways of doing the shows, so that if there are any theaters that are requesting to be reviewed for the rest of the year, that we include them in whatever it is that we're going to do for those first shows that have already been reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
And Mel, just to throw this out for you, there are 3 shows that I reviewed that are on paper that were not put in the system yet. So
Okay,
you can add 3 to whatever that number is.
Okay. Well, I have all of the sheets of everything that I sent out for reviews because nobody has put them in yet.
Right, nobody. I have 10 that I haven't.
Jason
the
hasn't got
yeah,
the
the pandemic
information.
happened before we got things
Right.
uploaded. We agreed to hold at the May meeting.
Right.
I have one too, Mel.
Yeah, I have everybody that has that they were going to review. So I have those,
Okay.
so, who reviewed what and, and everything too, but just nobody has had a chance to put them in. But I think we should add those that have already been reviewed, and any further ones for the rest of the 2020 season, just add those to the awards for 2021.
Mel, could you send out a list of any productions that we have committed to do that were held that we haven't gotten reports? I think I've gotten all mine in, but I'd like some reassurance that I'm correct.
Yeah, I don't know. Jason, did you ever get that done for the awards?
No, it was never,
None
it
of
was
us
never
have
created
submitted.
for
Okay.
2020. Yep.
Okay,
No,
so for 2020, nobody has sent anything in.
Nobody's submitted.
Yeah, nobody has submitted their reviews but I can tell you which ones that you had reviewed, and I can let you know that.
Okay.
Cheryl Clark.
Yes, just a quick point to that even if Olson could go, I very much if we're going to review shows, we need to ensure that we have at least 2 reviewers. I very much dislike any time that we only have 1 reviewer go to a show. I think that's completely unfair to the system and unfair to all other theaters. So I'm not at all in favor of us doing this. If we're going to do it half, I'm not going to say the word, but yeah, it would have to be under the same criteria that we always go under, that we have to have more than 1 reviewer. And then you realize if you're grouping 2020 with 2021, there will be no award ceremony in our event in March of 2021. We would skip an awards gala completely in that year, because then the awards would not occur until March of 22. So just so that everybody realizes that's what we're talking about.
Well, could we just do that awards thing in 2022 with all of the 20 and 21 awards?
Yes, but I was just clarifying that everybody understood then those would be carried for.
So normally any play that we review in 2021 would be awarded in March of 2022.
Right, but then we're saying that shows that occurred in January of 2020 won't know their results until March of 22, 2 years after the fact, which is fine. I'm just clarifying that everybody understood that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Tammy?
Well,
So
I'm sorry, folks. There's a lot of crosstalk. Tammy, you have the floor.
So to Cheryl's point, I don't feel like it's fair to make a theater wait 2 years for an award. When I said that I wanted it to be, whatever we do needs to be fair for those before COVID and after COVID. If we can't do an award ceremony until 2 years later, I don't feel like that's appropriate. So all I'm saying is whatever we do for those shows, we also need to do for post-COVID shows, but I don't feel it's appropriate to wait that long. So if we're not doing an award ceremony, then it needs to be more of a recognition as opposed to an award ceremony. Or it could be just an announcement on Facebook. I mean, it could be we review the shows, we select the shows, that's all done behind the scenes, and then the announcement's made on Facebook. And it could be something so simple as doing a Facebook Live, or it could be just a post for each category in the morning and in the afternoon for 5 days.
Thank you, Tammy. Gerard, you had something to add?
Well, I finance, and this is where I put my finance hat back on. One of the key reasons for having the awards was to boost attendance and to boost revenues for the annual event. I think if we do it virtually, we lose both of those opportunities. And if we do it virtually in this year for 2019, and we have nothing for 2020, we literally shoot ourselves in the foot for 2 years. Eventually, we can take that, but we're going to lose the group dynamic, lose the cohesiveness of bringing people together if we skip 2 years worth of galas.
Right.
Okay, if I contact the people that have already been reviewed for 2020 2020, and explain, let them know that they are still going to be in part of the awards, but it will not be done until 2022 because of the COVID thing. And I'm even thinking these people that had their shows reviewed in 2019, they don't even know who has won or who has not won because nothing's been said. I've had people email me that say, hey, what are the results of the 2019, awards? So we've got to worry about the 2019 awards too, more so than what we're going to do in 2020 with the shows that have already been reviewed. The 2019 shows should be top priority over what we're going to do with 2020.
Okay, I've got Cheryl and Tracy, and I didn't see who came first, so.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I was talking to actually one of the gals over here last night that's a local director, and just wanted her opinion on what she would like to be done. And she liked the idea of combining as well. But I think her understanding and the way I understood her is that we would combine 2019 and 2020 so that at the 21 gala, that's what we would celebrate is 19 and 20. That way we start fresh with 21. That maybe I misinterpreted what that was supposed to happen, but that's what I think should happen.
Can I iterate in that one?
We're going to get Cheryl first, and then we'll come back to you, Mel. Cheryl?
Well, and we have a discussion after this about the proposed September event. I mean, we've already tried to do the awards in August, and they will occur in September unless we come to some different decision here. So I don't think we need to let what we're going to do or what we are doing about 2019 get in the way. I think it's important for us to decide what are we going to do about 2020, because we have shows taking place and they're asking for reviews, and we have to decide how we're going to address that. If we're not going to do anything at all with those that were nominated the first 3 months of 2020, then there's probably no point in reviewing shows in the remaining months of 2020 either. That's my opinion.
And just for reference, the last review request I received was a follow-up for a show from March 12th. So we've not received any requests since March.
Okay, my thing is to Tracy about the 2019. Those have already been chosen, and they have been, we just haven't gotten the awards to them. So we can't hold those over until with the 2020 awards, because those 2019 has already been decided, and they just are waiting to hear who won.
Gotcha.
Okay. So that's my point is, I think we need to worry about the 2019 awards first, and then go ahead and do what we're going to do in 2020.
But there's nothing that would prevent us from putting all of 2020 in with the 2019s, redoing the calculation.
Cheryl, Clark?
Well, I would guess John's not here to ask, but I think the awards were already made. We were 2 weeks out.
They are made.
Yes, so we can't do that. But Mel,
no, wait, are they labeled?
No, they're not labeled. I'm waiting to get the names of who won so that I can get the person that was going to label them.
So then it's not too late. If you haven't made labels, it's not too late. But Mel, I disagree. I think the whole focus of this conversation needs to be, what are we specifically doing about 2020? Okay, what's happening with 2020? Are we going to offer awards in any shape or form? Are we just going to say we'll give a recognition for those shows that did take place in 2020 and then go on? So I think that's our choice here.
Okay, with that, I think then do the calculations at the end of 2020 and give them awards. like we would if it was a normal year. You know, give them the awards if from all of them that was in 2020, and then start in 2021 and do that in 2022. If that's the way we're, you know, that would be the fair way to do it as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
But Mel, I'm also asking, Jason asked for you to give the pros and cons that were discussed at your committee, and John had indicated that there was no consensus. So can you tell us who or what other points of views were expressed? That sounds like your point of view, and
Okay.
I get your point of view, but what else were thought?
Okay, John had said that many of us feel we should combine 2020 and 21 together and call it a COVID season. Others feel we should find a way to honor these performed in 2020 already. Some of us feel that we should not review any further shows this season due to COVID. Other members feel that if a theater is brave enough to mount a show and request a review, we should honor it. I am the frame of mind that we cancel the reviews for 2020. If a theater decides to put on a show, good for them, but I don't think it's worth the risk of our board members in a position to review a show in a pandemic. Just my 2 cents. We also had discussion that should we cancel the rest of 2020 season, do we offer a reduced theater dues next year? So I wish we had more consensus of what or how we should move forward to bring the board for review discussion. So we will ask the board to openly discuss these issues and come to a majority consensus on how to move forward with the rest of the season.
Right. I think we'd all read Jason's message or John's message.
Okay,
so
well that's, you know, that's what it is.
Mel,
Tammy?
is that an email that you can forward me so I can put that information in the notes?
It was in the board packet, Tammy.
Okay,
It's
good.
the
Okay,
awards
I wasn't
committee.
sure what she was reading from. Okay, excellent.
I mean, I would think it would be unfair to the people that have already sent the reviews in to cancel the 2020 season.
None
that
of
would be
this,
bad.
none of this has been fair in 2020. I mean,
Right.
I think we
Okay,
have to set.
I'd like to recognize Norman, please. I'd like to recognize Norman, please. You're on mute, Norman.
Sorry. Just putting 19 aside and looking at 20, I would suggest that we find some way to recognize the shows that have already occurred in 20. It could be a full-scale award or just something slightly different. I personally am not interested in reviewing any shows until further notice. I don't know how many other board members would be available to go and do reviews. And I don't think we should take review requests until we have a pool of at least 10 people that are willing to go out and do them. That's my feeling on 20. And then I think at the 21, next March for our annual meeting, we can have some recognition of the 2020 and possibly also some recognition of what theaters have done to reemerge, not as a review, but just as a mention of what theaters are doing.
Thank you, Norman. Based on the discussion that we've had and the items that have been pulled forward from the awards committee, I think there are 3 points which we need to hit on. How do we recognize what's already happened in 2020? How do we handle the rest of 2020 and reviewing? And from a position of liability, I think we need to seriously consider whether or not we want to send people to theaters to do a review who may or may not become ill. And if they become seriously ill or die, what is our liability as an organization? Because if they're doing it on our behalf, we would likely have liability. So those are the 3 things I'd like to consider. Cheryl Clark.
I'm going to go out on a limb and make a motion. I'd like for us to have some kind of recognition celebration at whatever event we have in March of 2021 that recognizes shows that did take place and creative ways for keeping theater alive during 2020. And I further would like to say that we will not be open to taking review requests for the rest of the year.
I'll second that.
I would.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, moved by Cheryl Clark, seconded by Norman. The first is to recognize in 2021 the shows that took place in 2020 and honor those creative efforts for people keeping theater alive in 2020, as well as having no further reviews performed in the rest of 2020. The floor is open for discussion.
I think those are two separate motions. I'd like to see them separated.
I would too.
Okay, would you like to make a motion to amend, Helen?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, and Helen, your amendment is to separate those into two individual motions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second
Second.
for Helen's amendment? That's Gerard.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, the floor is open on discussion for the amendment, which is to separate the original main motion into two separate motions, one involving recognition, the other involving reviews for the rest of 2020. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of splitting the original main motion into two motions signify by saying aye.
I
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. In deference to the rights of board members, Cheryl Clark, how would you like to handle these motions? Recognition first or reviewing first?
Reviewing first.
Okay, so the motion we'll bring forward to the floor is that there will be no further reviews for 2020. Norm, are you still comfortable with a second on this motion?
Yes.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded that there are no further reviews in 2020. The floor is open for discussion.
I have a comment. So my thought is we're asking patrons to come to our theaters and to watch a show, but we are unwilling to go to theaters to review a show. That's a very mixed message.
I agree on that.
Aaron has the floor.
I think it may be wise for us to determine feasibility, even outside of liability, which is another thing we need to discuss, but how many of us are willing, able, and interested in going to review? Because if it's like 3 of us, we can't make that guarantee. So maybe it would be wise for us to investigate that a little bit first.
Cheryl Clark, you had a comment, and then we'll back up to a straw poll on Aaron's point.
Sure, Gerard, I would just comment that you said we are willing to ask patrons to come to a theater. That's not true of all of us. Amongst this group of people here, there's very few theaters who are actually going to be open. So, and Norman's theater is one that's going to be open, and I think because he's seconded my motion, he's willing to say no reviews. So that I don't think we can blanket say that we are asking people to come to our theaters, but I'm not willing to review, because we're not asking people to come to our theater.
Aaron, would you please restate your point? I don't think I got that documented correctly.
Before we discuss liability, it might be wise for us to determine feasibility, because if there aren't enough ICTA board members who would be willing to go and do reviews out of respect for their own safety and health needs, then there's no point in even considering it.
And I'd like to operationalize this as a straw poll. Thank you, Aaron, for the point. I'd like to see a show of hands of people that would be willing to review a show in the remainder of 2020.
I don't know if you can see me, but I would be willing to go review a show.
Yeah, we can see you. I've
So
got 4.
Are we using that functionality in Zoom, or are we physically raising a hand?
People are physically raising their hand, but if you're raising your Zoom hand, go ahead and do that and I can see you, which makes 5.
So, do you need me to document who those people are?
Not for the purposes of this discussion.
Okay.
Cheryl Clark.
Jason, I'd just like to add, I love reviewing shows. I will review shows up and down and in and out, and I love doing that. But I have an autoimmune condition. I'm prevented from doing this function. So just want to clarify, it's not that I'm not willing, but I cannot.
Sure.
Cheryl Zerner, did I see a hand up from you?
Yes, yes. Oh,
Go ahead, the floor is yours.
no, I would be willing.
Oh, okay, thank you. Mel, you had something to add?
No, I just have my hand up that I would be willing.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this motion? I believe the point of liability has also come up. And we should probably discuss our liability. I believe, based on my experience in risk management, that if we send people out to review shows under our name, that we would have some level of liability should they become seriously ill or die. And what that liability looks like, whether criminal or civil or financial, is yet to be determined, because there is legislation at multiple levels of our government discussing just that item. So I think we should also take that into consideration.
Well, if I went out to review a show, I would not hold ICTA liable if I would catch COVID. I mean, I'm going out and doing it for ICTA, but I would not push it to where I would, sue ICTA or anything else if I would get sick.
And understandable, but and just again, throwing information out there. Would your spouse, partner, children, grandchildren also sign off that they would not sue?
I would assume so.
Our liability goes out beyond just the individual.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, I'm going to put this out here, and this is why the reason that. Go ahead.
Jason, the other item that we could be liable for would be workman's compensation, because volunteers and nonprofits have been held to pay workman's compensation for an incident that happened while they were working or volunteering. Sorry.
Thank you, Gerard. I've got another. Sorry, Mel, please finish.
Okay. I'm just saying is that I'm out in the public pretty much 4 days a week. I'm working at Domino's. I wear my mask inside the building, and I wear it when I go on a delivery. And I've been doing this for months, since this all started, and I've been doing this. And so I'm not afraid to go to a theater. I've got my mask, and I'm sure most people in a theater, I know when we're going to, say that a mask isn't mandatory, but we would like you to have one.
Thank you, Mel. Tammy?
To have one on, we're going to supply them if they don't have them in at home.
Thank you, Mel.
So that's my point of saying that.
So I have 2 points. The first point is that I determine my personal liability in my current situation. So there are restaurants I will not go to and restaurants I will go to. There are stores I will shop at and stores I won't shop at. There are precautions that I choose to take as far as mask wearing is concerned, hand washing is concerned, sanitation is concerned. And my choice to protect myself is different from many of the people around me, including several people on this board. My immunities are different. The dangers and the risks that I'm in are different. So while I'm not immunocompromised, I don't have any family who are immunocompromised. I'm working from home. I'm going out in the public less than the average person. I choose which risks I'm willing to take. And I just voted that I would choose to take the risk to see a show where social distancing precautions are being taken and where I'm allowed to take the risks or take the precautions that I choose to be comfortable with. So I'm volunteering to take that liability. The second issue that I have with the what ifs, and I'm not being divisive here, but I would like to know if we have any documented case where someone has been sued for causing COVID by the sheer effort of being available for services. I don't know of any, but I'm open to hearing if there is knowledge of any organization or company or nonprofit being sued because you caused my mom to get COVID. So my second point is, does anyone know of any cases, or are we still in that what if it happens place.
Thank you, Tammy. Norman?
Yeah, I was just going to say the legal arguments are just beginning, but several large insurance companies have gotten a ruling saying that this COVID virus is a force majeure or act of God, and no individual or organization can be held responsible for an act of God as long as you understand that your volunteer understands the risks involved. So when we invite people back into our theater, we are telling them you run the risk of contagion. If you're willing to accept that risk, we ask that you follow the following simple measures for the comfort of others, and you accept the risk. That's it.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor in that that has been moved and seconded that there are no further reviews for 2020. Is there any further discussion on this item? Cheryl Clark.
Jason, can you tell us the straw poll? How many do we have who say they're willing to do reviews?
The straw poll, which is not a formal item of business, was a count of 5 individuals. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we will proceed to a vote. The motion on the floor is that there are no further reviews for the Awards of Excellence for the year 2020. Due to the fact that this will likely be a vote that is difficult to count, I would like to call for a raise of hands. All those in favor of no further reviews in 2020.
Jason,
Yes, Gerard?
could we use the Zoom raised hand yes or no
Yes,
functionality?
we could. And
That if everybody knows how to do that, or if we need to do a quick, if you click on the participants on the bottom, it should bring up a little list of everybody in, and then give you the option of raise hand, yes, no, go slower, go faster, more.
Oh,
thank you, Gerard. So if everyone could open their participants list, we will utilize that functionality to show a show of hands.
Okay, Jason, my screen is black. I mean, I have no picture, no nothing, so I can't do anything. Pam and I can't do anything with the screen.
Okay, I'll take your votes by a physical raise of hand.
Okay.
We'll make sure that everyone's rights are represented. Is there anyone else having difficulties with that feature in Zoom? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to hold no further reviews in 2020, please signify by clicking the yes button in the participants list of Zoom.
I see 5. Do you agree, Jason?
I see 7.
You see
There are
7.
There are, well, there were, yeah, there are 5 in the participants list. Norm put a thumbs up, and Pam has her hand raised.
Okay,
So that's 8.
8 votes to not do reviews.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. All those not in favor of the motion, which is to hold no further reviews for 2020, please signify by clicking the no button in the participants list. The no button in the participants list. 1, 2, 3. I have 3 no buttons selected and 1 physical hand raised for a total of 4. And are there any abstentions? Seeing no abstentions, the motion carries. There will be no further reviews for the Awards of Excellence for 2020. Thank you all for your very good discussion and willingness to keep the issues front of mind and not personal issues. We'll now proceed to the second motion that is on the floor, which is a motion to recognize the 2020 shows that have already been reviewed, along with the 2021 awards, as well as recognizing the creativity of those who have restarted after the pandemic has incurred. Is there any
I'll
discussion?
second.
Sorry, could you restate that? Because it sounded like you're folding 20 and 21 in together.
Cheryl, can you restate your motion, please?
Sure, it was to recognize all shows that took place and will take place in 2020. And also recognize the creativity that we will have seen for theaters to stay viable during 2020. So just a point of clarification, I guess I was motioning that we would not give any actual awards for those that we did review in 2020. It would be all shows that took place.
Okay, so I'm going to read this back. To recognize all shows that took place and will take place in 2020, to recognize the creativity that theaters demonstrate in alternative methods, no awards, all shows.
Okay.
So,
since there was,
so-
I'm sorry, Gerard, one moment, please. Since there was a restatement, Norman, is your second still valid? Okay, go ahead, Gerard.
could we call it the Show Must Go On Award?
That's up to the committee.
It's just, you know, it's one of those theater, and it definitely fits.
Thank you, Gerard. Is there any further discussion on the motion on the floor?
I have a question for Mel.
Yes.
You already have everything imprinted for 2019?
Yeah, no, it's not printed yet because I don't have the names to get the plaques printed. They've already been ordered and she's just waiting for the names.
Okay.
But we're not discussing 19. We're only
I
discussing
meant
20.
20, excuse me, 20.
Oh, no, nothing's been done for 2020.
Okay, nothing, okay.
No, no.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of recognizing all shows for 2020 that have either occurred or are yet to occur, recognizing the creativity of theaters returning to theater post-COVID, as well as doing this with no awards, but as a recognition, please signify by saying, oh, I'm sorry, Cheryl, were you going to jump in? Oh, okay, great. Please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. And I would like Tammy to note that we need to refer two things to committee here. One is what this looks like from the awards committee, as well as getting some language from the marketing committee that we can distribute to our member theaters.
Got it.
Thank you. All right, thank you, folks. We're doing great work.
What are we going to do about the incoming requests?
We will politely let them know that
If
we
we
will
get any.
not be doing any further reviews for 2020.
Okay.
Okay, moving along the agenda. The next item is a joint annual meeting and awards ceremony to be held virtually, which is now proposed for September. This has been a discussion between marketing, awards, and events. So I will have Cheryl and David take the floor.
I'll start. Then we've talked about having an event, combined annual meeting, awards, presentation for 2019 on Monday night, September 21st. It would be a virtual event. And I guess I'll speak on behalf of John, who's not with us because he's been part of this work as well. I think that he and Jason have secured someone to create a video montage for us of those nominees so that we make the presentation and the announcement of who is nominated for the awards a special event.
Cheryl, if I may, can I expound on that for just a second? Yeah, we were approached directly via the president inbox from one of a very active member from El Cater who does video work professionally and offered to do at no charge, should we need it, a virtual awards video for us for, should we choose to do the 19 awards. So she also provided examples of her work, which were sent out to those committees or to the committee chairs and reviewed, and everybody seemed to be in favor of that. So that would be a nice gift to us from one of our member theater members.
I think ultimately the other thing that just happened is that we, the executive committee and the previous board meeting, we had set a date and we just couldn't make the date happen. I think it just got beyond us much quicker than we thought. And so we're requesting to the board to just do the same thing we talked about doing it, just doing it September 21st, even though the board had tasked us to do it by August 24th. That's really what the point of this request is.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion on this issue. Is there a motion to hold a joint event on Monday, September 21st?
The marketing committee is requesting of the board, but by committee, so I don't know if that means it's a motion or not, but we're requesting the authorization to hold the awards ceremony and annual meeting on September 21st.
Okay, this comes forward from the marketing committee then. It requires no second. Is there any further discussion on holding a joint annual meeting and awards presentation on the 21st of September?
So
The word
just question. Oh, go ahead, Helen.
How will the word get out? How will we notify our members?
We will utilize every available communications channel that we have. Facebook, email, direct mail, center stage. Gerard, you had something?
Logistically, will we then be mailing the awards? How will we distribute them physically?
So the discussion that was had amongst those committee chairs was that when we resume reviewing shows in 2021, those awards would be hand delivered at those theaters when they had a show reviewed or by a board member nearby.
And this would be in 2021?
The delivery of
They
the
would get-
physical awards would be next year. Yep. Cheryl?
Would,
Or for example, if they didn't have a show being reviewed early in 2021, we've all been assigned a region that are kind of our theaters. We could make an effort to take that award to one of their shows, even if it wasn't being reviewed, or maybe to an annual meeting or some such thing and make a presentation.
Yes, Mel.
I would be willing to take around any awards that I could and take them now. And, you know, I have the time to do it. So that would be another thought. Because there's only, what, 15 of, how many awards are there altogether?
18 or 21. It's more
18,
than 15.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and some of them might be the same one.
Cheryl Clark.
I do think it's
I'll call you back.
important that we're consistent, though. I mean,
Okay, bye.
if someone is going to make deliveries yet in 2020, then I think we would have to make arrangements for their all to be delivered in 2020. I mean, I kind of think it's not fair to those to make them wait to 2021.
They've
Just
waited this, I mean, I look at it, they've waited this long. You know, but I would be willing to deliver them.
I could probably help too, Mel, this side of the state.
Yeah, I mean, they've waited long enough. I think they need to know who it was that won and get their awards.
Well, they'll still have to wait until after the September 21st event. They won't know who wins until after that.
Right, right. I understand that. But I mean, to have them wait again until, you know, we do something in 2021, that again is almost 2 years.
I'd also be willing to deliver.
Okay.
I think it's also important to remember the messaging that of our actions, and the board has voted to not perform any reviews for the remainder of 2020. So if we're not doing reviews but delivering awards, we need to consider that messaging as well. Tammy, you had something?
No, I was just going to put out there that I was willing, but I see your point.
Okay, is there any further discussion on holding the joint annual meeting and awards presentation on Monday, September 21st?
So for the awards, we would literally then be doing a Zoom meeting, and would the award participant or the winner then get to speak on behalf or say thank you, or they are just recognized and we continue on?
I believe the discussion that happened with the first round of this for August was that it would be a pre-recorded item.
We don't allow award winners to speak at our live events, so I don't see that that would be something we would include.
I had a question also about the awards. Could the awards be kept at a central location so theaters could pick them up? For example, if they were held someplace in Des Moines centrally located, would that be a possibility?
Theoretically, yeah. I also think that if those folks are coming to an event in 2021 with us, whether it's our annual event or the regional events that we've discussed, that would also be an opportunity to pick them up as well.
I guess I'm just thinking about our little theater, and if we were given an award, I'm sure someone from our theater at some time or another would be driving. I'll just use Des Moines as an example. Could be picked up, and I have no idea where they could be kept in Des Moines. So I guess logistically that has its own issues.
I think for the purposes of the motion on the floor, we're discussing whether or not to hold the event and when to hold it. I believe that the logistics of distribution of awards can be referred back to the awards committee, unless there's any strong indication to amend the motion on the floor. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of holding a joint annual meeting and awards presentation on Monday, September 21st, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
How many opposed?
I think I counted 3.
3.
Abstentions? Seeing none, the motion carries. Okay, thank you, folks. Next up, we have a discussion item for the discussion of the full board, which is a 2021 convention festival discussion, as well as support for any groups that may be invited to the National Festival 2021 for the National Festival. For those of you who may not have seen it, AACT is not holding the 2021 festival in the way to which we are accustomed, where states send theaters to regional events and those theaters then compete and move on to the national event. It's going to be an invitation-based festival this year, where theaters apply and are selected to go represent their state and area at the national festival. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that deadline has already passed.
No,
No, it
Has
hasn't.
it not?
No.
Okay.
it's December 1st.
Okay, December 1st. For some reason, I had August 1st stuck in my head. So there's still time for groups to apply for that representation. The discussion then comes back to us to discuss how we would like to handle an event in 2021 and whether or not March is an appropriate period of time to hold that event.
I know we're planning on doing something in Newton.
Cheryl Clerk?
I'll speak for events. what we've tossed around is the possibility of essentially taking our March of 20 convention agenda and plan and moving that to March of 2021. What we've discussed is, I know we'd selected Red Oak as the site for festival, but it was to be a festival site. So I guess we're still tossing around whether we would still hold a convention type event at Red Oak, or if we would want to save Red Oak for a future festival event, because they do have features there that really accommodate a festival well. So we may want to revisit where we would hold a March event if we hold a March event, but it would essentially be a remake of the convention we didn't get to have. That's it.
When will the AACT event take place?
It's set for the third week traditionally, and is again third week in June in Louisville, Kentucky. And they're making parallel plans all along for how this event would be held virtually instead of face-to-face. So they're planning that it may not happen face-to-face.
I would like us to think about not using March, but moving it later. Again, the way this is going, and if there is a vaccine late this year or early next year, March would only be, the first 3 months getting everyone vaccinated. We'd be much more likely to have a better attendance in May than in March. And if they're worried about and planning this both virtual and on site, then there is some real risk there.
Although I do think we could carry out a convention type event virtually as well.
Good idea, yeah. Literally, we could have the classes and different things readily available. They could even be pre-taped.
So I don't believe that these items require any board business at this point, but it was an opportunity for those who asked the question and the events committee to have some feedback from the board as to our thoughts. I think it may be in our benefit to send this to the events committee and have more information brought back at our November meeting. Norman?
I would just like to echo what Gerard said, because I think that the committee might want to consider a May event, just to give us a little extra breathing room.
I had a question. Next year, will we be back, will nationally the festival be postponed until 2022 then? And next year, everyone will have a convention?
No, it would be postponed to 2023.
23.
Well, I mean, what takes place in 21 is whatever festival looks like, which doesn't look like normal, and then it will resume its normal cycle, which would put a traditional festival again in 2023.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments on this issue? Okay, Cheryl, do you feel as though you've got enough information to take back to your committee to do some work on this? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Next up, I had a request for us to discuss the current environment of groups and businesses expanding their diversity and inclusion functions and statements, as well as the inquiry as to whether or not we would like to have a diversity and inclusion statement. Would anybody who contacted me that's on the call like to expound more on their question? Okay.
I'll fess up. I mean, I was the one that presented the question to Jason, and I just know that individually several theaters were dealing with some scenarios. I was not clamoring for a statement. I was not declaring we needed one. What I was wondering though is if we had started thinking about it in terms of theaters that we were going to start, really soliciting to try to be part of ICTA, and particularly when it came to board recruitment. I know we cannot do anything for our current board, and I just kind of wanted to make sure that we were not ignoring the situation. I wasn't asking for any solutions at all. I just wanted to make sure that it was a topic that we continue to make sure we address, especially when it comes time to board recruitment, and especially since it takes a while to recruit board members. I just wanted to make us, get us started on that process, even for next year's board.
And just so you don't feel called out, David, you weren't the only one that raised the issue. Okay, Norman?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that would make an excellent topic for our next festival or convention, to do a roundtable on the subject, so that theaters can share what they're doing, and just, I think that would be one way of bringing it to the fore.
Just a quick plug for AACT and all the workshops that they've been offering during COVID. They do have a training coming up next Thursday, a week from Thursday, August 20th, on fostering inclusive theater. So check out the AACT website if you haven't seen that, and consider attending.
Okay, any further discussion on this topic? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the next item of new business, the Boughton Awards. There was items pulled forward.
Since I'm the one that mentioned it twice, I just would like to, I think Gerard is very correct that we should probably have some clarification. And I would like to propose the idea that we would like the Boughton, I apologize for pronouncing it wrong, the Boughton Award honorees for 2020 to basically give them 365 days after they start doing a theater again, in order to be able to still use those funds. So rather than confining it to a calendar year, confine it to a year after they're producing and doing theater actively again, is my suggestion and idea.
And is that a formal motion, David?
If that's acceptable, yes. If we need the motion to start the conversation, or if everybody's just looking for a suggestion, then yes, I make that motion, please.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Aaron's got it. Okay, the floor is open for discussion. The motion on the floor is to permit those Boughton Award recipients to have 365 days beyond their restart to utilize those funds. And David, if I could ask for clarification, is that the awards that we allocated in November of 2019?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Because that's the ones that Gerard was having troubles with, right? Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I haven't received, I've had one inquiry and silence from the others. From a logistics standpoint, I would like us to, instead of going 365 from the day they reopen, to currently putting it at December 2021. It just makes logistically easier for me. And then again, we can revisit if somebody is close to getting it done or whatever, and they just need some extra time, we as a board could then reevaluate that. So I would ask to amend that the motion to be December 31st, 2021.
Thank you, Gerard. Is there a second? On the amendment, I think that was Mel.
Yeah.
So any discussion on this item, which is instead of 365 days, put the cutoff at December 2021. Yes, Tammy.
So this applies only if we don't amend this, but I would like a definition of what is reopening, because for instance, Ankeny is still doing shows, we're just doing them virtually. So are we closed or are we open? do we define open as shows on your actual stage? Do we allow shows that are being performed in parking lots or at alternative venues? Is that live? What do we do to define live?
And I would suggest that we just eliminated any of that question by going to December 31st of 2021.
Okay, we have an amendment to the main motion on the floor, which is to change the time parameters from 365 days to December 31st, 2021. Is there any further discussion on this item, on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. The original main motion now is stated as allowing those theaters that were awarded Boughton funds in November of 2019 to have until December 31st, 2021 to access those funds. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, David and Gerard, for bringing that up. The last piece of new business I have are a couple of reimbursements for me, and looped together, I think they take us above the threshold where I need to seek board approval. Those are two items. One is the renewal of our old URL that we are carrying to maintain copyright ownership, which is in the amount of $28.16. The second is the invoice for our discounted Zoom service for 1 year, which is in the amount of $136.33 for a total of $164.49.
I move
Motion.
that reimbursement be given to Jason for those two expenditures for our board.
Ellen has
I
the
second.
motion. Gerard seconds. Is there any further discussion? I will let you know I was able to find a combination of coupons that got us a pretty significant discount on the Zoom services, above and beyond what TechSoup could do, which is often fairly reasonably priced way to get software for nonprofits. So I did my due diligence in making sure we got the best deal. So, all right, any further discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to a vote. All those in favor of processing the reimbursements signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Gerard, I will get you those items, the invoices for those after this meeting.
Fantastic.
Is there any further new business from the floor? Seeing none, we will determine our November meeting. We are slated for the 14th of November with a location of to be determined. I would posit that we should continue meeting via Zoom, at least for the remainder of 2020. If there are any objections to that, now is the time. Fantastic. Our next meeting will be via Zoom on Saturday, the 14th of November, 2020 at noon. Is there any further items of business for the good of the cause of the association?
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you all virtually in 3 months.
Thanks all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, stay safe.
Stay safe.
No.
David, if you're still there, I just had a quick question.